You're listening to Two Girls, One Mai
Get smart about your money.
with the Shift Control session brought to you by moneysmart.co.za.
Shift financial control back to you. This is the Money Smart Shift Control session.
Shift Control, indeed. And we were talking to Stuart Taylor earlier about how money's too tight to mention, and obviously it is. And the hidden costs of being a woman are even higher. I mean, I actually wrote an article for Money Smart this week, and obviously we're girls, so we've got hidden costs anyway. We've got to wax and hair
and makeup and shoes. And
exactly. Shoes. But you know, men kind of just have the basics, and now there's studies all over America and England that have actually proven that because of this mentality of how we pay more and you know do more, they actually bill us more just on principle now.
What, just because things are prettier and they're more accessible and they have more visual appeal?
Basically, they went into like a drugstore. And I think they did it on Dove underarm deodorants, and the Dove underarm male deodorant was 50 US cents cheaper than the Dove underarm female deodorant for exactly the same ingredients, volume, everything. Essentially, the only difference was the fragrance. And
but then fragrance is fragrance, so surely it should cost the same.
Exactly. And when asked, they sort of said, well, more care has to be taken for women's things, you know, the pastel colors, and basically no legal reason. And it even went so far as in America that when they import shoes from, you know, China or wherever, there's a 10% import tax on female shoes and only an 8% import tax on male shoes.
Is that because they're importing the same volume of shoes, or
it's because it's women and everything about a woman? Because if we think about it now, these are like the article, it starts like, ladies prepare to be outraged, because we've always just accepted it without even batting an eyelid. And when you think about it, why do we pay more for haircuts than a male does?
Look, I've always asked this question because we had this discussion last week about how I'm the hair freak.
Yes.
I presumed that you're doing more on a woman's head than you are on a man's, haircut. Although, Rushka said to me that men's haircuts are a lot more difficult to do than women's, because with women's you've got longer layers, you can kind of hide mistakes.
Yes, exactly. So there you go. There's the answer.
I feel more cheated.
Yeah. And I mean, it's across the world that's the case. So, just ask your hairdresser. Watch them be confused. Because it's not their fault. It's sort of a precedent. It's no hairdresser specifically that we can point at, because everyone does it. And they've got the men's barbershop up the road that's like 30 Rand for a cut and shave. Can you imagine?
But then men would go for a haircut sort of every couple of weeks, whereas we probably
don't.
wouldn't.
So maybe that's why they charge that.
But I mean, that's the only example that could actually be explained.
Because even so far as laundromats, apparently, the laundromat will charge more for a woman's blouse than for a men's button-up shirt, which is essentially the same thing. But they'll say, oh, it's more care involved in a woman's blouse. But really? So this is the thing. And America, in California, because it's called gender pricing, I think the Americans, you know how they label things.
It makes it so you can mitigate.
Yes. And in California, they, in 96, made it illegal to gender price. So it has to be equal across the board. And they found out that, before they did that, they found out that women were paying, on average, $1,650 a year more on exactly the same product, just because of the inflation for being a woman. For the pink shampoo.
How do we get around this, though? Because I mean, everything's more expensive. Everything from underarm to shoes.
Yes, but I went and did a little research of my own with a notepad. I was worrying that the store people were going to start, telling me to please leave, because they're sneaky. Because the women's aisle and the men's aisle are separate, so you can't. Because you know how you scan and you're like, oh, that one's cheaper, that one. You can't compare by glancing with the men and women. It's sneaky. But I did find, and I will name the brands, that Nivea was exactly the same price, and so was Dove in this country. But the razors, pink razors, Bic, pink versus the yellow, more expensive for the pink ones.
Again, you would buy a razor less often than a man. Although, I was thinking...
No, I think more. We've got bigger legs than their face.
Yeah, but leg hair's... leg hair's not half as rough as men's.
You don't have my legs.
Okay. Well, I was thinking, though, Nivea and Dove are quite asexual products.
Yes, but they've got the men's range now.
Yes, they do.
They
do.
For men, and then
That's really interesting.
Yeah. Well, when I wrote about it, I was sort of saying, well, I'm not going to be the one to tell you not to get the rose-scented hand wash because it's more expensive. Because if we can't have joy from pretty smelling hands, then what hope is there left for society?
There's no reason to live.
But to be aware of things like that, because, like glance and just make sure, because, the whole thing with Money Smart is to stick to a budget. Don't be blind consumers.
That's a much smarter thing to do, like go to Money Smart and work it out. I was thinking global petition. We will fight back.
Well, I mean, apparently there is. America, obviously. There's all these feminists. Honestly, there was so much literature out there when I did the research for this thing. I didn't even touch on health insurance, which women apparently pay more for as well, because the health insurance people say women are more likely to get sick and they have more, all these ridiculous, completely unsubstantiated claims. But before we ran too hard, I'm going to play a song, and then we'll come back with the second half of Money Smart, talking about other things like Glossy Box, where you can find cheaper ways to get the women's products that maybe would be more expensive, and samples and ways around it.
And prettiness.
So I'm going to play old school, because we're playing all the old school hits, remember those? And this is a bit of Meredith Brooks, bitch.
That song reminds me of being a teenager and just being pretty angry with the world.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're talking about Money Smart's hidden costs of being a woman, and that's a pretty angry, like, you don't know anything about my problems. Yeah, we were talking about the fact that women's things are generally priced up for no reason other than it's aimed at females.
And the other thing is we never speak about it. I mean, part of it is that you don't actually notice until someone brings it up.
Exactly.
Pretty much like, reading
because
a study.
Men are always hunting for bargains and talking about money more than women.
I don't know if they're hunting for bargains, but they're definitely talking about finances and how you invest and all that sort of stuff.
What I mean, we'll hunt like shopping, but
right.
They are more likely to haggle, whatever the word is, for like a bit cheaper price. Where women
true.
are a bit afraid, like, oh, we'll just pay, we'll just do it. And I think they are exploiting us because of this.
I'm a horrible bargainer.
Oh, yeah.
And
you're Indian.
I did, but I went to India and I couldn't bring myself to do it because people are starving. And
I know, I agree. When I was around Southeast Asia, people are so poor that I'm just like, you know what, $5 is ripping me off, but I'm, what's $5 to me?
But it's also that I don't like to talk about money, and that's kind of what this article was saying. I kind of feel a little bit strange talking about it. I mean, even if you have to go for a job interview or whatever else and it gets to that point.
Yes, like what's the salary going to be?
I've had to psych myself out to now kind of say this is what's going to happen. This is how the bargaining process goes, which is crap because I think that I'm an emancipated woman. Like,
yes. We're living in a man's world, but we've still got this like 50s housewife sort of, well, we won't talk about the money, which doesn't, work. And that's, essentially why girls need to do this Money Smart budgeting, reading, learning.
Well, what I think Money Smart helps that because it allows you to see it all and then you actually know what's happening
like
and
the
you're
thing
able to talk
with all
about
the
it.
banks that Toby showed us, the comparison. That was great because a man would go and compare because it's their job to know about money.
I've known men who kind of do. I remember an ex of mine. We were going to get a new ISP or whatever else, and he went and did a comparative study, and he brought out the Excel documents, and I was like, "Really? Is that necessary?"
That's
but
amazing.
clearly it is.
Yeah, exactly, and it is. It's interesting because I have a very ostrich in the sand approach to money. I'm just like, oh, I've got enough for the month. It's fine. No investments, no planning. And as females, like, what are we doing? Because if you look at the stats, it was the man was the head of the household. That's why. But how many single moms are there? It's like naive to assume that we're going to have a man taking care of us till pension days.
Definitely.
It's crazy. But you know what I read about the ostrich with the head in the sand? Well, I didn't read it. I saw it on QI. That is actually a myth, obviously. And the reason it started is they actually put their head to the ground so they can better survey the horizon. So it's actually completely the opposite of putting their head in the sand. It's looking at the horizon from a lower vantage point so they can see any enemies. So they're like kind of like spying. So that's a nice analogy to flip it. So instead of putting your head in the sand, put your head down and survey the finances.
I've been living a lie.
There you go. So next time you say, I put my head in the sand, be like, that means I looked at it even more closely. The other thing that I didn't mention with the pricing, what I did find in Clicks, because the men and the women's aisles are separate, the men's deodorants were exactly the same price as the women's deodorants, like the spray, the body spray ones. But the men's was 150 mils and the women's was 90 mils. Cheating us. So the solution, there's a way. Instead of a worldwide petition, how about this? How about we spray the men's one? We buy that one. And then when men see hot women and then suddenly their senses argue with them because they see this hot girl and then she smells like a dude. And they're like, what? Then I think the men on top will quickly change.
That's a way to stick it to the man.
No more flowers. So that's the thing, women. There are hidden costs to being a woman. We're paying more anyway. And what can we do other than be aware that there are some brands that aren't charging us more? But yeah, it's a conspiracy, and I think look into it. Go to the Money Smart page. I've tweeted the link. Go read it. There's a link at the bottom of my article where you can read more with more details. And the bottom line, I think, is empowering ourselves.
Join us every Friday between 1 and 3 p.m. for the Money Smart Shift Control session.
Budget, save, and invest with moneysmart.co.za.
The free online personal finance platform that helps you stay organized with all your money in one place.
Shift financial control back to you.